One, two, microphone check. One, two, mic check. One, two. All right, this is Jamil Salib Zamir out of Manning, South Carolina. Sincerely thanking everyone for tuning into this installment of Community Candid. Again, promising to come back to you with some powerful information that I must share with you today. It's pertaining to our children. It's pertaining to how we raise our children. It's pertaining to changing the whole dynamic, the whole frequency of how our children are raised so that we can guarantee pretty much that we will have a better a group, a better generation of children for the next generation to follow. We have dropped the ball, not necessarily because we knew how to do it correctly, but we dropped the ball because we didn't study. Everything that is of God requires study. Study means that you may hear a message from someone that is so powerful that it changes who you are forever. But when you hear that message, you must go and decipher that message, break it down, and find the information that either debunks the message or agrees with the message. Most of the time, we just accept a message because of the person who said it. So it becomes a personality cult. Today, we're going to talk about our children. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of what must be done in the first 7 years of a child's life. And today, we're going to talk about how Satan understands what must be done and why Satan comes in early. As the Bible says that the dragon sits at the foot of the woman, waiting to devour her seed. Now, over the years, I've found that people are not as strong as I thought they were. No matter how muscular, no matter your gang ties, your political affiliation, any of that, I've found that when it comes to telling the truth, when it comes to being concerned about the next generation of our children, most adults are not strong enough to put down their own desires to do something better for our children. We are a sacrifice for the future, but we're not willing to sacrifice for the future because we want to enjoy our lives and hope that by chance our children will turn out better than us. Time is out for gambling. We must begin to do it properly. Now, before I get started, I'll be coming out of several books today. The Endangered Black Family, Coping with the Unisexualization and Coming Extinction of the Black Race by Nathan Hare, PhD, and Julia Hare, MMED. These are books. If you're gonna talk, if you're gonna be that intelligent person, you must read. We'll be coming out of this book. Not a lot out of the books, but I just want you to know where I got the information from that I'm talking about today. Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys by Jawanza Kunjufu. I have the whole series of these books, but I just wanted to come out of this. And the reason I want to come out of this a little bit is because when you talk about the Willie Lynch letter, now people are saying that was a CIA operative, that it's not real, but this is real. Kwanzaa Kunjufu is real. And the psychology of black boys, and not only black boys, but people in general, we must begin to study. So this is the second book, The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. That's 2 books that I've shown you. The next book is by a white author. This is William Bill Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse. I would suggest that you read this book because he's coming from a military standpoint as a decorated military soldier, and some of the things that he saw in the military and how they plan to divide and conquer, not in another country, but some of the plans and operatives that are for this country. Another very good book, Change. These are the books I'm coming out of today. Change Agents in the School, Destroy. It says destroy your children, betray your country. It's talking about the school system and how it's designed to manipulate the mind. Why are we talking about the mind? Because in the first 7 years of your child's life, if you don't get control of their thinking, their imagination, and their mind, the first 7 years, everything that they see, hear, feel, touch, sniff, everything, all of the senses, they accept it as real. So the society on social media, you don't see white folks killing white folks, Mexicans killing Mexicans, Asians killing Asians. They won't allow me to play a song or half a song on Facebook, but they will allow the murder of a black person by another black person, or violence and fighting, or fake hair and fake this and fake that. They will allow that stuff to go through on social media. There's a reason for that. Try not to get angry. If you wear false hair, that's your business. If you cut your eyebrows off and paint some on, that's your business. Listen to what I'm saying, not how I say it so much. I know it's difficult, but I got to talk to you today about this. The first 7 years of a child's life is how they are programmed. Everything that they see, they accept. If they are programmed correctly, then we're able to go from 7 to 14 and only have to do things repetitively so that they will remember. But our children are being indoctrinated by Satan into death, by the glorification of murder, death, betrayal, jail, and other things. This is the other book. And the last book, Descent into Slavery. And I had another book, The Iron Triangle. I couldn't find it, but Descent into Slavery. This book is talking about how governments and people in power, positions of power, manipulate society to make them do what they want them to do and change the whole dynamics of society. It's happening right now. So that's 5 books that we'll be coming a little bit out of today. And of course, out of this book, the Holy Bible. So I invite you to come and join us today as we talk a little bit about demon time. This is part 2, Satan on 7. There's a reason I'm talking about 7, because it's the 7 periods, the 7 heavens, the 7 cycles, the 7 ways that we must talk about today, because it's not enough just to tell people about a God that they can't see. God is cause and effect. God is conditions being built up for something to happen. And once we begin to teach God on that level, we'll begin to save the next generation, because we've lost 2 generations, not only to the street, not only to violence, but our educated men and women have decided that they want to be different mentally, have decided that they want to use tricks and lies as well. Sororities, fraternities, Masonic orders, all of these people have separated. Out of all of your Jay-Z's and your Beyoncé's, there's not one doctor, there's not one hospital or one bank or one grocery store or one mom and pop grocery store on the corner, due to the money that they've made. What's wrong with the mind of our people, that we hate ourselves so much that we don't even believe that we're worth anything? Let's talk about that 7 today. Give me an hour. We're 8 minutes and 42 seconds in. I'll be right back after the promo. Thank you. Thank you so very much for tuning in to this month installment of the 19 Report. I am your host, Brother Johnny. I walked a thin line between right and wrong, took my fears to God, then I wrote this song. The spirit kept calling, so I answered the phone, and then I manned up and got some backbone. My mind resonates at a much higher tone, solid foundation, empire zone. 3 mountains, I'm in one, right to left counted, 9 and then 1, left to right switch it, 1 and then 9, west to east, south to north, a thin line. I know Christ exists, cause his mercy allows me a chance to stand 3 on a square. Yeah, we in there. This is Brother Johnny of Groove 19 Promotions. All right, I sincerely thank you. This is Community Common with Jamil Salib, Community Candid with Jamil Salib Zamir. We're going to talk today with 9 minutes and 46 seconds in. Give us an hour today about the Satan on 7 and how this world has designed itself to capture our children from birth to the age of 7. the time that they are in a brainwave pattern called delta and theta. Delta, in the first 2 years of a child's life, they're literally just sleeping and eating, pooping, and other things. You can introduce thoughts into their mind at that stage, the sound and the vibration and the energy of the parent, whether it is a love energy that causes them to be calm, or whether it is an angry energy, the things that you say to a child, even in the womb, they are necessary at this stage in the first 2 years of a child's life, that they're in the delta stage. But from 3 to 6 and into 7, from 3 to 6 and into 7, they are in what is called theta. And theta is more like a lethargic state where information can be introduced into your subconscious mind, into your psyche, and everything that a child is completely dependent on the parent from that period of time, from birth to 7. Whatever you say, they believe. Whatever they see, they are not able to break that down into falsehood or truth. Whatever you introduce to them is what they believe. This is why psychologists say you should never put your child in front of a television from the ages of birth to 7. Because you don't see the flickering of the TV, but the television is hypnotizing them. And life has them in a theta state, which is hypnosis. And the child is being hypnotized into a pattern of life, no matter what that pattern is. And unfortunately, at this stage in our communities, the pattern of life is violence, disrespect, pornography, the focus on money being the key to all life. But the main thing is the violence. Our children, black boys and girls, believe that they are born in this world to be violent. And because they believe that and their mind is in a theta state, that is inside their subconscious mind, they can act any way to make you think that they understand, but the subconscious mind you cannot see. The subconscious mind is where the soul is. And the soul is where God wants to occupy. But Satan is after the soul. So no matter how much we talk or teach or preach, the external skeleton can make it appear as if though they understand, they believe, but the minute they're outside of the sight of those who they don't have to impress anymore, the true self comes out. So the introduction of demonic thought it's subconscious. The child should not be watching television, listening to violent music, listening to arguing in the home or anything. The child should not be introduced to weed residue, weed smoke, alcohol, cigarette smoke, chemicals in general. The child should not be given a bunch of medication like Tylenol or acetaminophen. Look it up. Acetaminophen is the main cause of ADHD and mental dysfunction in our children today. We overdose them with medication. If you are willing to stand and fight for your boys, your hood, your club, your sorority, your fraternity, how much more are we willing to fight for our future? We have put our future in the hands of a people who enslaved us, and we think that because we are all under laws now, that enslaving process will not reintroduce itself. It already has. It already has. This is Jamil Salib Zamir. We are live today on 3 platforms: on Facebook, The 19 Report, The Music Man, and Jamil Salib Zamir. We're also on Linked. Again, I always broadcast on Linked. I'm not selling anything, although I sell things. I don't see how a person is going to be functional mentally with a lot of money if they are dysfunctional mentally. So business is not just conducting business person to person. Business is the proper mental state in order to do business properly. So we're on Linked, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram. I apologize. I was supposed to do this last night, but time caught up with me, and I wasn't able to do it. Let's go into the book of Genesis 2, 2, and 3. We're talking about the number 7. We're talking about the 7 years in the life of each child. We're talking about our desire to really stand on the square and protect our children. We must do it. King James 2, 2 and through 3 says, and on the 7th day, God ended his work, which he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work, which he had done. Then God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work, which God had created and made. The 7th day. We're going to talk about that 7 today. If you did not hear our commentary on the Jubilee and the 7, please pay attention to that, because we are in the year of the 7, 2023. 2, 2, and 3 is 7. We're in the year of replenishing. We're in the year of completeness. We're in the year of revitalization. But if we miss this opportunity to take advantage of God's mercy, then the next 50 years will be the most difficult that we've ever experienced in our life. And you're seeing it already. Almost 3 banks have collapsed. The weather is going crazy. Phenomena that only occurs every 50-year period is reoccurring. It's nothing spooky. This is how God works. A cycle happens and then it recycles itself. Summer comes and then it leaves. Winter comes and then it leaves. Catastrophic events come like tornado season and then they leave. But in the midst of that is a warning. The significance of 7 in the Bible. I want to talk about that. And then we're going to go into some of the theta activity in the brains of our young people. In the first 2 years of their life, they're literally dead. So whatever you want to psychologically introduce into their mind, start doing it now. But if you're in the car with them listening to killer music, that's what they hear. That's what's pumping through there. This is not a game. This is real. You looking for some spooky solution to a problem. The only way our children are succeeding now is through their desire and ambition. They want to be something, but underneath that desire to be is an impediment. Underneath that is an illness. Underneath that, you find out later on that they're on drugs, that they're engaging in dangerous sexual activities, that they are murderer, they're rapist, they're a gang member, they are a crooked politician. Underneath all of that, our children are cracking. They're breaking because we are not preparing them mentally. I didn't do it. My job is, by God's permission, to warn those who are in the process. I know you're happy about your child, but you can't take them through the same process and expect the results to be the same. Expect the results to be different. So I want to read this real quick. I got a lot of, we are 18 minutes in. Man, I might go over. I'm already giving up already, right? Theta entering the world of our subconscious. I want to get this to you. Let me add this to the screen. I'm sorry that you can't see this on Instagram, but you can always go to the website on at the 19 report, and you can see it in its entirety. And I hope that they're not blocking me too much. But I want to read a little bit of this about the theta, the theta mindset and the theta brain waves. Everything is in frequency. God is a frequency. Music is a frequency. Words, angry words have a frequency. Nice words have a frequency. Lies have a frequency. Emotions have a frequency. Everything has a frequency. Theta enters the world of our subconscious, entering the world of the subconscious. Theta brain waves measures at 4 to 7 hertz are the brain frequency of the barely conscious state, just before sleeping and just after awaking. That's why we dream at that point. But a child is in that theta state from 3 to 7. Theta is the intriguing border between the conscious and the subconscious mind. What am I saying? I'm saying that someone understands the mind, and a satanic force understands how to manipulate the mind at an early age. So when we look in the book of Revelations and we see that the dragon sits at the foot of the woman waiting to devour her seed, we are trying to envision this big dragon with wings and blowing fire. But the dragon is the strength of the person who understands how to manipulate the child. That dragon in Revelation was a serpent in Genesis, but the serpent got so strong throughout the Bible that by the time it got to the book of Revelations, it was a dragon. We war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. I'm going to find that before I go. Every experience we have as a human being is the result of our brain waves. I'm going to say that again. Every experience we have as a human being is as a result of our brain waves. Thinking hard does not usually result in flashes of brilliance or creativity, nor does it lead to emotional states of being the nurture, or being that nurturer, our body and soul. Theta thinking at that point in our life, we think that it's all right to allow our children to watch Nickelodeon when the word Nick means devil. We think as long as it's a cartoon that our children are protected from all of the bad things of the world. But this is the way that Satan intends to come into the minds of our children, through cartoons and through what we perceive as innocent, through nursery rhymes, through riddles, through jokes, through books that show images of everything one color. Unrealistic introduction of lies into the minds of our children is a detriment to our future. I don't care how you teach Bible or religious literature. If you're not tapping into the very mind of the person, the minute they leave you, they go back into their same state. They go back into their same state of mind. Now, by introducing these false realities into the minds of our children from the ages of 2 to 7, it causes an emotional imbalance. That emotional imbalance causes the ego to surface, because the ego is trying to protect the individual. Listen to what I'm saying. You're going to see this. By protecting the individual, the ego says, it ain't my fault. It's everybody else's fault. It's his fault because he's in a different religion than mine. He's the reason. It's her fault because she likes another girl. She's the reason. But we never look within ourselves and say, maybe I'm the reason. For many of us, we have a difficult time uncovering who we really are, or from recovering from our thinking mind, as we so often identify with our egos and our inauthentic selves. Now, there's a book called The Art of Smart Thinking by Dr. James Harded. Look it up. This lists some red flags that are indicated that the ego mind is in charge. And I want you to pay attention to these red flags. If we don't teach our children during this period of theta how to identify with their true self, not to be our children, our young girls, the moment they get old enough, they want false hair. They start accepting a false reality. They want lipstick. They want fingernails. They want tank shirts where their belly is showing. They want tattoos. They want all of the things that this world introduces in that false reality. Now, after the age of 7, you'll know that a child does not know their true self because they begin to feel anxious or worried. They create this situation creates doubt about our decision making. We think rigidly and not creatively. If you look at society now, everybody pressing shirts. Nobody is creative. Everybody's doing the same thing. Very few creative minds in the world today, because when you are not in your right mind, you kill your creative self. This is what is happening to our children. They're being indoctrinated into negative thought. How many of us will take a pledge today and say, I'm going to keep my child away from the tablet, away from the TV, away from the cell phone? They won't be, for the first 7 years of their life, introduced to life by someone else's standards. As a person who is brought up under the ego, you find that they always want to impress others. Always saying or doing things that we regret, having low expectation of ourselves and our lives. That's in the family now. The entire family has such low expectation of themselves that they disown the family and join on to another family who seems to be doing better than their family. My daddy was a drunk. My mama was this. I don't like them. They treat me wrong. You don't honor them. They brought you into the world, but you can't honor them because there's an impediment in your brain. Due to the fact that from the ages of 2 to 7, you weren't nurtured into the proper understanding. Because everything that you're shown, you absorb it. You're in a state of hypnosis. Always hiding or denying our true feelings. You see that on social media every day. Everybody wake up happy. Nobody got a problem. This is an impediment. This is a mental illness caused by the way we were raised. Hiding or denying our true feelings, feeling like a victim of life's circumstances. Well, ain't nothing we can do. What are we going to do? There's always something you can do. There's always a way that we can make a situation better. Do you realize that Black people have given up on their children and have decided to pass them on to the system and say if the system can't do nothing with them, then they're done? Let me show you something real quickly. This book talks about that. Change agents in the school system. Destroy your children, betray your country. Our children are mentally destroyed. They see nothing of greatness in their future with the exception of drill music, gangs, rappers, singers, because the world could be falling apart and we would be more concerned about what Beyonce got on, what Jay-Z got on. Getting trapped in endless mind chatter, mostly negative. These are the signs of people. See, this is how I know this is real. It's because our children wake up from 10, 9, 7, up until 30, 35, 40. Wake up. Marijuana is their breakfast. Liquor is their lunch. Anything, Percocets is their brunch. Anything that gets them out of the reality of now. And now is the only reality. The future is gone. The past, the present, we don't know. But I mean, the past is gone. The future, we don't know. The present is the only reality right now. But we don't live right now. Our children fantasize about tomorrow. You take them to a park and try to enjoy time with them, and they're thinking about something else. They're not enjoying the right now. So when they get past the age of 7, first thing they say, my mom and daddy never did nothing for me. They don't even remember, because that is not a thought that was introduced into their brain. They're under hypnosis from 2 to 7. And on the 7th day, God rested. Why did he rest? Because at the age of 8, new trials will be introduced into the mind, and you're no longer learning through what you see, what you feel, what you hear, but now you're learning through repetition. So after the age of 7, repetition. We're talking about Demon Time 2, Satan on 7. When a child is brought up properly, from the 2 into the 7, you'll find that they have feelings of optimistic. Most of the time, they have feelings of optimism. They experience trust. They're going with the flow and they're open to change. See, most people, and you see this in our elders, the churches are falling apart because the elders don't know how to accept proper change. They think that the way they read the book is all that's necessary. That's an impediment in childhood. But when we don't go back and say, I got mental issues, I was brought up incorrectly, I have situations, then we waste the first 7 years of our life. Then we waste the second 7 years. We're 14 now with no sense of direction. Then at the age of 21, we want to go out into the world and be a child again. So from 21 to 28, we're doing childish things. We're in jail half of our lives. Listen, if we don't start this pattern off properly, and there are people who are angry at me for doing this, for telling you this, but this is necessary. This is harder than shooting somebody. This is harder than selling drugs to your people or cheating the system. Killing is becoming easy. Killing is easy. Everybody will become a killer soon. We're going to have to, because there's going to be somebody trying to kill you. That's the world that we accepted. That's the frequency that we accepted. And very few people have the heart, the strength, the faith to change it. So rather than change it, we go into an illusion and we say everything is all right when it's not all right. We got our money, we got our fraternity, sorority, or whatever. We're happy. We party on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, go to church Sunday, come back out, work. If there is not for those things, we would have no life. My point today, if you're not ready to protect your child from the time they're born until the time they are able to comprehend what life is for, then you're not worthy of a child. And not being worthy of a child means that they are subject to the frequency of death. They are subject to the frequency of disrespect and law breaking, going to prison. Everything that is happening is not just those children's fault. It's the fault of the adults who had children when they're children, and who refuse to pick up a book or change their life in order to help these children. Adults are going to their grave saying, I did all I could. You're lying to yourself. But if we are out of our ego, then we go with the flow and we are open to change. We are able to accept oneself without judgment, taking responsibility for actions and decisions, not projecting feelings onto others or blaming others, knowing how to accept and how to receive, listening to and acknowledging feelings, knowing how to ask for help. See, this generation, I ain't going to no psychiatrist. I ain't talking to nobody. My business is my business. And you ain't even sane enough to break through the confusion in your own mind, you and I. We're talking today, Satan on 7. The reason I entitled it Satan on 7 is because God and Satan occupy the same space. They say no two things can occupy the same space at the same time. So when God moves out of the way, like he did with Job, listen to what I'm saying. I said God and Satan, I said occupy the same space. But God moves out of the way because no two things can occupy the same space at the same time. But as in the book of Job, God says, if you try Job, I'll move out of the way. It's my space, but I'm going to allow you to occupy it to test your theory. "34 minutes in. No two things can occupy the same space at the same time, but God and devil are opposites of each other. And God is the energy flow of frequency of right, and the energy flow and frequency of wrong are fighting on opposite poles, opposite planes, with the results that are indicative of that plane. So there is a one positive and a one negative. One positive has a car and is happy and believes in God. One negative has a car and is happy and believes in what they perceive as God. Same thing happening in heaven is happening in hell. That's my point. There is a fight for reality. And the illusion looks like reality. False hair looks like it's your real hair. They've made it to blend in so well with your scalp and the little baby curls. You could barely tell the difference. A false man who's transgender looks like a woman. They're fighting. But if we capture our children from the age of 2 to 7, do you realize that behaving negatively around what God gave you means that there will be a cause and effect to that? You raise your child and they look good on the outside, but when they get old enough, you find out that they're no good inside and out. All right. Let's go a little farther. We're almost done. We're talking about Demon Time 2, part 2. And Satan on 7, because 7 again is the God number. I want to read something to you real quick, just to make sure we get this out. I told you about the opposite poles, the positive and the negative, and that they occupy in virtual time the same space. If you understand the tree of life, if you understand a little bit about the Hebrew Israelite culture, and you see a tree on the top of the ground with all of these things, and then there's a tree that is underneath the ground, that same tree, but it is opposite of the tree at the top. So I want to talk to you today a little bit about the 7 churches that are mentioned in the book of Revelations. We're going to go into this, then we're going to close it. But I want you to understand what we're up against when we don't protect our children. Now, y'all, listen to me. It's difficult to protect a child in this world, but we must do better. And what I'm introducing you to now is only a little bit of that. If you can look up on the on my chart, I have the theta, I have the delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma waves going upward, and how they flow in the minds and the period of time in ourselves and in our children. Of course, you know the flickering of the screen of a television causes hypnosis, and it drops us down into theta. It drops us down into hypnotic state, and we believe what we see. The purpose of creating big screen TVs is not so you could be entertained better. Satan allowed this big screen TV to be created because frequency flows quicker through LED screens. Frequency flows quicker. So when your child is in front of that screen playing video games, and the frequency is interrupting proper thought quicker, Satan is winning. Let's go into this real quick. They talk about 7 churches in the book of Revelations. And those 7 churches are like the 7 chakras, or the 7 points in the body to the brain, or the 7 periods that we have in our life to capture the mind and hearts of our children, or again, the 7 days. Look it up for yourself. I'm going to put this on the screen, and then we're going to close, because I'm putting it up there for a reason, though. The 7 churches and what they symbolize. See, we're living in the book of Revelations. Revelations 2, 1 through 7. Revelations 2, 1 through 7. The church of Ephesus, The church that has abandoned its love for Christ and teachings. The lesson in this letter to Ephesians teaches that truth and love must go hand in hand. A church that upholds doctrinal purity at the expense of showing love is just as flawed as a church that upholds congregational harmony at the expense of truthful teaching. Instead, Jesus reveals that a church fashioned in his image must teach God's truth in love. So we have churches now. Remember, I talked about them. This is the main focus of our life in the South. The church, and it's talking about the 7 churches that are out there now. The church of Ephesus is one of them. This church teaches that truth and love. This church teaches, it upholds the doctrine without love. It upholds congregational harmony at the expense of truthful teaching. So you see these big churches, and these big churches have a lot of members. And boy, them preachers can really preach. And this is not all of them, but they have no connection to God. This is our children throughout the first 7 years of their life, as we begin to teach them falsehood, showing the world that it looks like we love them by the way we dress them, by the way we talk to them in public, by the way we see to it that they get love and hugs, but it's false. The book says that the kingdom of heaven is within you. Look it up. The book says that the church is within you. Look it up. So if the church is within us, then that means all of these example of churches may be an impediment or a compliment to who we are. I know this is kind of heavy, and I apologize. I try my best to teach it the best way I know how, the simplest way I know how. But if you can do it more simple or simpler, do that. Church number 2, Smyrna, the church that remains faithful amidst persecution. See, I see young boys who are trying to find their way. And that church inside of you is always jumping from one thing to the next. You will never find your way that way. But if you are not able to stand your ground against someone who sounds or perceive or gives the perception that they are more intelligent, then you can't fight for your church. The church of Smyrna, Christians are persecuted worldwide in obvious and insidious ways. This letter warns all Christians that although we may suffer greatly, the length of tribulation will be shortly compared to the promise of eternal life. Stand your ground. Teach your children between the ages 2 and 7 how to stand their ground. They're in a state of hypnosis. Teach them that. I did not get that. I ran and ran until I was about 18 years old because there was no father in the home. And this book talks about the destruction of the father in the home so that you could not be taught how to stand your ground, rather you win or lose. So that church in me was destroyed. And in many of you the same. That's why you're picking up guns, and that's why you're so violent and angry, because no one is teaching you the reality of who you are in the first 7 years of your life and giving you that period of rest in your 7th year to prepare yourself for the next 7 years. So Smyrna, got to learn how to stand your ground and stay faithful to what you say you believe. Stop jumping from thing to thing and ride it out with an open mind that new information can be introduced and given, and you can accept criticism and you can move forward with the collective. See, the church has proven most of them they can't do that. The way congregations jump from church to church, the way the church splits itself and one's over here and one's over there, the way the preacher will accept a crook but will not accept another member who doesn't believe the same as they do. Which brings us to the church of Pergamum, the church that compromises its beliefs. The law, like the Christians in Pergamum, it's easy to normalize the non-Christian behavior of those around us and allow that behavior to dilute our values. Why are all the crimes and criminals and mentally unstable people allowed in the church without being checked because of what they bring to the building? But the Bible urges us to not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind in accordance with God's word, Romans 12:2. See, this book called Bible is not just a physical book, but this book called Bible is our actual physical self. I mean, material book, but the Bible is us. We live the eternal. We live the Quran internal. We live the Tanakh, and we live the Hebrew writings internal. Which brings us to the church of Thyatira, the church that follows false prophets. See, we allow false prophets to come into the minds of our children from the ages of 2 to 7. We don't protect them. A false prophet is anything that makes you feel something that is not real. Most of our children are high before they're 2, because you smoking marijuana around them and they get the contact. Significance: just as some in the church of Thyatira were led astray by a false prophet, Christians today fall prey to cult leaders, occult practices, and other false teachings. To share in Christ's victory, we are to avoid these so-called deep secrets of Satan. We are to avoid these so-called deep secrets of Satan. That's in Revelations 2:24, and hold firm to Christ's teaching. See, you think a false prophet is someone that is of another religious belief. That's not what a false prophet is. It could be that, but a false prophet is very well someone in your own religion who teaches the book according to their warped understanding. And as a parent, you are the minister to your child. Everything that they receive is under your guard. How come you can guard your brothers and shoot and kill and cheat and lie, Masons, sororities, fraternities? How come we can do all of this crookedness for the brotherhood, but not for our own children? Why won't we put forth the effort to protect the real future? Because a fool and his money will soon part. Which brings us to the church of Sardis. We're almost done. The church that is spiritually dead. And this is where we are. Young man Nico Soprano, Nico sent me a writing about how the heart is dying. Today's Christians can fall in the trap that ensnares the church in Sardis. If we merely go through the motions of practicing our faith without really feeding our spirit, we can avoid becoming the living dead by engaging in our faith through Bible study, prayer, and fellowship. What is Bible study? Bible study is the study of yourself. What is prayer? Prayer is the connection between us and the universal law of God. What is fellowship? Finding others who think like you think and building a community to protect our future. We are not protecting our future. Look around you at these communities who are gating themselves in. They'll talk to you, laugh with you, giggle with you, but when they go home, they're in a protected community. The Church of Philadelphia, the church that patiently endured despite weakness. The message of Philadelphia shows us that blessings that come when we maintain our faith despite life's tribulations. In fact, those who persevere despite weaknesses will stand strong as pillars in heaven. And the last one, the church of Laodicea, the church with a lukewarm faith. Like the church of Laodicea, it's easy to become complacent in our faith during times of abundance. Christ warns us in this revelation that he will spit our lukewarm disciples out. Spit out our lukewarm disciples. Instead, Jesus urges us to keep seeking the Lord's face even after his hand has bestowed riches in our lives, even after we get those riches. Stay with God. I teach it from a Christian perspective because we in the Bible Belt. And if you ain't coming from the Bible Belt, you pretty much wasting your time. Pretty much. Now I'm going to close on this. We are 49 minutes in. The effects of TV on the brain. Watching TV is something which virtually everyone does, but do you know that TV can actually be harmful to you? Television viewing can, for example, decrease your ability to concentrate, physically impair the growing child's brain, and increase your and my risk of developing neurodegenerative brain disorder. Like many people, I won't go into that part, but I do want to get to this, and then I'm going to close it. Here are 7 ways, 7 ways that television can affect our brain. Hypnotic state. The brain slips into hypnotic state within seconds of watching TV. Watching TV puts the viewer into a highly suggestive sleep-like hypnotic state, theta. This provides easy access to the subconscious and is one reason why it is easy to fall asleep while watching television. The hypnotic effect is largely caused by screen flickering, which lowers your brain waves into an alpha state, a state of mind that you would normally associate with meditation or deep relaxation. In most people, this occurs within 30 seconds or 3 minutes for very light and infrequent viewers. In a hypnotic state, the information which you are exposed to will be downloaded directly to your subconscious mind, where it can alter existing beliefs and form new beliefs without you even being aware of it. Lack of critical analysis. This is why the violence is, we don't critically analyze the results, the action, the equal and opposite reaction. Television can reduce our ability to think critically. When you watch television, brain activity switches from the left side of your brain, responsible for logical thought and critical analysis, to the right side. This is significant because the right side of the brain tends not to critically analyze incoming information. Instead, it uses an emotional response, which results in little or no analysis of the information. In other words, it is as if someone is telling you something and you believe what they say without doing any research. Addiction. TV can create both a physical and psychological addiction. Watching television causes the body to release chemicals, which makes it feel good. These are endorphins, a natural sedative with properties similar to opiates, like morphine and heroin. So watching and fantasizing and going into alpha state after the age of 7, you go into alpha. You cannot come back down to theta that unless someone hypnotizes you. But alpha is a relaxed state where all the information that you're receiving is being programmed. It reduces higher brain functions. Number 4, TV viewers reduce higher brain activity, promoting activity in lower brain regions. In other words, it makes you behave less intelligently and more like an animal. Did you hear that? Television lets your brain get flabby. Your brain is more active when you are sleeping than when you are watching television. Since the health of your brain is largely determined by how much you actively use it, watching too much television can therefore have a detrimental effect on the health of our brain. When you don't think, you're in a state of alpha. After being in 7 years of theta, then 2 years of delta, 5 years of theta, and then you're in alpha, but it's like you're a child again. It shortens your attention span, number 6, and we're about to close. Excessive television viewing can cause a person to develop a short attention span and increase the risk of attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I told you that in the beginning. It causes ADHD. Finally, impaired brain development in children. This is the one, and we're going to close. Watching television appears to be especially harmful for children, as their brain has not yet fully developed. Increased television viewing in children tends to impair frontal lobe development. This region of the brain is responsible for the impulse control and one's ability to concentrate. Thus, damage to or retardation of the frontal lobe can result in a child who acts socially inappropriately, exhibits antisocial behavior, and finds it difficult to concentrate and learn at school. And after Satan poisons your and my children by destroying them, what do? Problem, action, solution. They introduce you to a psychologist, and then they introduce you to drugs. Now all of our children are on some form of drug, and the adults are on another form of drugs. I wanted to put that before you today. I hope that you will share this information, and I pray sincerely that God will allow your heart to stop thinking that I think that I know everything. I know some things, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I study, but I don't have no more than the next person. Jesus knew a lot of things, but he had no money. But my study is because I see what's going to happen. God has shown me the future. And if we continue in this path, thinking that we can just have a good time without responsibility, the next 50 years, this is 2023, we're on the 7, we can make a change. But it requires that the adults change. And if the children are not, and if the adults are not willing to change, then God's going to move them out of the way too. Demon Time, Part 2. Satan on 7. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think I went over everything. Again, we talked about the breaking up of the family unit. Yes. Yeah. You can't blame things on gangs and violence, because colors control everything. Sororities have colors, red and black, pink and green, all of these different colors, and they think theirs is the best. Political parties have color, blue for Democrat, red for Republican. Gangs have red and blue. Everything is divisive. Everything. This is by design. And when you don't have an intelligent mind, you feel you got to choose a side, whether they're right or wrong. But the Bible says choose truth. We must begin to choose truth for our children. From the ages of birth to 7, that's the window of opportunity. They are in a state of hypnosis. And if all they're hearing is violence and smelling is drugs and hearing us having sex and looking at violent shows and feeling the frequency, every television show that you watch has a frequency to it. We are so disconnected from our proper selves that we don't feel frequency, but God has permitted me to feel it. And I see dark auras around people, and I'm not going to fight Satan. I just avoid it. But once I see it and the actions of it, and God says to speak about it, I speak about it. So I'm talking about this for a reason today. We are living the book of Revelations. We are in the 7 churches. There are 7 places there are 7 chakras, 7 areas in the spinal column, 7 areas in our growth. Everything comes in stages of 7. But instead of rising from Malkuth, as they say in the Hebrew language, instead of rising from the sexual self, we go down from sex downward. That's where the tail of the devil symbolizes come from. We go down and out, but you're supposed to rise up and out. And if you rise up and out with impediments, that's where the horns come from. Because the rise of God's energy is supposed to be a heavenly state. I didn't want to go into that too much, but I just put that out there. We got to begin to grow. Thank you all for tuning in. This is Jamil Salib Zamir Manning, South Carolina. Blessings to you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for tuning in to this month installment of the 19 Report. I am your host, Brother Johnny. I walked a thin line between right and wrong. Took my fears to God, then I wrote this song. The spirit kept calling, so I answered the phone. And then I manned up and got some backbone. My mind resonates at a much higher tone. Solid foundation, empire zone. 3 mountains, I'm in one. Right to left counted, 9 and then 1. Left to right, switch it, 1 and then 9. West to east, south to north, a thin line. I know Christ exists, cause his mercy allows me a chance to stand 3 on a square. Yeah, we in there. This is Brother Johnny of Groove 19 Promotions.